Before we get started on this video, I have to make a quick disclaimer. It is going to sound really judgy because I'm going to share with you the three most ridiculous money beliefs as it relates to saving money in retirement that I have ever heard in my entire life. And I've heard this from three different people at three different times. And when I heard it, each one of them speak this into existence, I didn't say anything. Because it's one of those moments where it's like, you hear something a little like, huh, but you don't actually say anything about it in the moment. So I wasn't judgy towards the person, but I did think that the comments I heard were really strange. And I want to share them with you today because some of you might believe this stuff. So we need to talk about it. And I would also love to hear the most ridiculous advice that you have ever heard from other people around finances and retirement. And one more disclosure, you're probably going to hear Chloe snore at some point because that's just what she does. So let's jump right into it with the first thing that I heard. And this was many, many years ago because I am not a spring chicken. I must have been in my mid-20s when I heard this. I just gotten my first adult grown-up job where you get like a match when you, put a certain amount of money into the retirement savings program that the employer offers. And this is when I was living in Canada, so it was to an RSP. And, you put a little bit in and your employer puts a little bit in. And I just been taught, the value of that is basically free money. So I was sharing this with my friends one weekend. We were up at a cottage and I had said, I'm so proud of myself. I just started my first RSP, blah, blah, blah. So we were all kind of talking about that. And one of my girlfriends piped up and said, my dad told me not to bother with RSPs or anything like that. He said, just wait till you're married and let your husband deal with it. I remember at the time thinking, that doesn't sound right. But I didn't say anything. And that comment stuck with me this entire time because, oh my God, what I wish I had have said. If I were back in that position now, I've been like, girlfriends. Oh my God. What a horrible thing to say to your daughter, that you are potentially not smart or capable enough to deal with your own finances, that it is more important that you find a husband than get financially literate. Like, granted, this was a long time ago. It was a different time, different place, but it wasn't that long ago. And the idea of telling a woman not to worry about her own financial future and to lay that upon her husband, just it's awful in so many ways. And when I think about my life now and the many women that I have known and loved who have gone on to get married and have children, and as per usual, sorry man, but this is true, when people have children, primarily the responsibility of those children fall upon the woman. So whether she is a working woman or not, she generally takes a hit financially when there's children in the family. And I think about my own mother, who was always a working mother, but also took a big financial hit when we were born. And, subsequently when they broke up, my parents, it was not good for her. It was not good for her at all. I've also seen this in other friends, even more recently, where their financial situation becomes precarious when the marriage falls apart. So this is a belief that is very near and dear to my heart. I think that all women need to take full responsibility for their financial situations, regardless if they're married or single, regardless if they have children or not, no matter what their situation is. We've always, as women, have to have some degree of financial autonomy and financial literacy to make decisions in their best interest at any stage of life. Okay, the next crazy ass money and retirement belief that I heard quite recently from someone I know was related to my own decision to transition into early retirement. I've been talking about this for a while, and I could tell this person was not really on board with my decision, which is fine. I don't need anyone to approve of my decisions. But what she said next was burned into my memory, and I will probably never forget it. She said, there's a reason why traditional retirement is 65 and not 55. There is so much that we have left to contribute between our age now, which is 55, and the point where we just kind of pack it in and retire at 65. And I remember thinking, okay, well, that's an interesting belief. I didn't say anything. I let it go. But I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, yes, You're right. There is a reason why traditional retirement age is around 65. And that reason is not a moral one, it's an administrative one. The reason that most people assume and accept that retirement is traditionally 65 is because that's when most government programs kick in to support retirees. Here in the US, that's when Medicare starts, and you can collect Social Security a little earlier than 65, but you get like 30% less than if you wait till full retirement age. And as a result of programs like that, same in Canada, you assume that 65 is the age where you're supposed to retire, and you don't even consider any alternatives to that. And that is, in my mind, kind of sad that you would never consider an alternative future for yourself outside of what the government deems is appropriate for you in your golden years. I want to retire when I want to retire, not when the government tells me to. So I felt kind of bad that she actually believed that to be true. But the other part of it that I thought was really interesting is this idea that the minute you stop earning a full-time living, you're no longer contributing to society. That's so sad that anyone would actually believe that. In fact, as I move into retirement, my plan is to become more of a contribution to society. I want to do more work with the pug rescue that I already work with. I want to do more things for my community. I want to work on my house more, which is going to improve the quality of my immediate neighborhood. So everything that I do post retirement to improve the quality of my life and the people around me is what I would consider a contribution. And it has absolutely nothing to do with receiving money. And if anything, it is more of a selfless contribution because you're not receiving money for it. In fact, I can think of a lot of jobs and positions that do not in any way contribute to the betterment of society at all. And I'm sure you can come up with a lot of them as well. So I just thought both of those ideas that stem from this idea or belief that you're supposed to retire at 65 because the government says so is not so much like ridiculous as it is just really, really sad. And then the last crazy belief that I heard from someone came from a coworker about 10 years ago. We were talking about retirement, and she told me that she was quite sure that she would never be able to retire. And as a result, her money philosophy was to just live for today, enjoy today, because that future retirement's never going to come. So don't even bother thinking about it or saving for it. And I can't begin to express how quietly devastating I think that that belief is. And it's more common than you might think. I see a lot of YouTube videos pop up about, I may never be able to retire, so I'm going to buy myself this or enjoy this experience. And there's a couple of things here that I think are really important to point out. Number one, I'm not saying that living for today is a bad thing at all. In fact, if I were to go back and do my own retirement journey all over again, I probably would have lived a little bit more in the moment. Now, it did accelerate my ability to retire early by, I don't want to say depriving myself, but by choosing not to spend on certain things. But at the same time, you never know how long you have, right? So I could have been scrimping and saving and saying no to things only to find out that, I had incurable disease and I was never going to make it to retirement anyways. So that's one thing. So I don't fault anyone for living for today. But to assume that you are never going to be able to afford to retire and therefore you're never even going to start saving for a future is just so completely insane. I don't even know where to start with this. I think a good place to start actually is to say, you may not choose retirement, but retirement is at some point will choose you. Because the reality is, at some point, we're going to get aged out of jobs. And it's going to be more and more difficult to find new jobs making similar money, if at all. And with this advent of AI, I can only see how more high-paying professional level jobs are going to become less and less. And if you are someone in your mid 50s to mid 60s where you are at the highest earning years in your career, you are probably well aware that you are on the chopping block the next time somebody needs to get laid off because you are the highest paid employee of all of the other underlings who are doing similar work to you, whether they have your level of experience and panache or not. So I think that it is so short-sighted to not save for retirement, even if a full-time retirement may or may not be in the cards for you in the future. At some point, you will not have the choice as to whether or not you work again. And that's only assuming that you get aged out of something. That's probably the best case scenario. Another scenario is that you get sick and you can no longer work, or your loved one gets sick and you have to become a full-time caregiver. Any number of scenarios like that can happen where you don't choose retirement, but retirement chooses you. So hands down, I think at any age, and hopefully the younger you hear this, the better, you need to start saving for your future, regardless of what you want to call it. You don't have to call it retirement. You don't even have to put it in a retirement fund if you don't want to, although I still think it's smart to put it in a retirement fund. But to not save for your future is such an oversight that your future self is going to pay a very heavy and high price for, whether you believe retirement is in the cards for you or not. So those are the three things that I heard. And at the time, I never said a word to any of the folks that shared those beliefs with me, mostly because in the moment I had not really processed what they said, but all of their words have stayed with me to this day and will continue to stay with me. And I hope that by sharing these stories, maybe I've uncovered a limiting belief that you might want to look at, or at the very least, please tell me all the crazy stories that you've heard as well, because I know we've all heard a lot of them. So on that note, guys, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.